Jacob, the son of Isaac and Rebekah, is one of the most significant figures in the Hebrew Bible. His life story, as recorded in the book of Genesis, spans many years and is filled with dramatic events, encounters with God, family conflicts, and a deep transformation. Jacob is regarded as the father of the 12 tribes of Israel, and his journey from a young, cunning man to a faithful servant of God offers rich lessons on faith, perseverance, and redemption. Early life and the struggle for the birthright. Jacob was born as one of twin boys to Isaac and Rebekah, with his older brother Esau emerging from the womb just before him. Even from birth, their relationship was marked by conflict. As Esau was born, Jacob was holding on to his brother's heel, a sign of the rivalry that would continue throughout their early lives. This act led to Jacob's name, which can be translated as supplanter or heel grabber. The twins grew up with starkly different personalities. Esau was a skilled hunter and favored by their father Isaac, while Jacob was more contemplative and quiet, staying closer to home. Rebekah, however, favored Jacob. The pivotal moment in their relationship came when Esau, famished after hunting, begged Jacob for some of the stew he was cooking. Seeing an opportunity, Jacob agreed to give Esau food, but only in exchange for his birthright, the privileges and blessings that traditionally belonged to the firstborn son. Esau, driven by his hunger, agreed, and thus Esau sold his birthright to Jacob, setting the stage for future tensions. The deception and the blessing. Years later, when Isaac was old and nearly blind, he wished to give his formal blessing to Esau, his firstborn son. However, Rebekah, wanting Jacob to receive the blessing instead, devised a plan. She instructed Jacob to disguise himself as Esau by wearing his brother's clothes and covering his smooth skin with goat hair to mimic Esau's hairy body. Isaac, unable to see clearly, was deceived by Jacob's disguise and blessed him, passing on the covenantal promises of God that were given to Abraham and Isaac. When Esau discovered that Jacob had stolen his blessing, he was furious and vowed to kill his brother. Fearing for Jacob's life, Rebekah sent him to her brother Laban's house in Haran, where he would find refuge and possibly a wife. Jacob's journey to Haran and the vision at Bethel. As Jacob fled from Esau, he stopped for the night at a place called Bethel. There he had a remarkable dream of a ladder, or stairway, reaching from earth to heaven, with angels ascending and descending on it. At the top of the ladder stood God, who reaffirmed the promises he had made to Abraham and Isaac, now extending them to Jacob. God promised that Jacob's descendants would be as numerous as the dust of the earth, and that all the nations of the earth would be blessed through his lineage. This vision profoundly affected Jacob. Upon waking, he set up a stone pillar and poured oil on it, marking the place as sacred and naming it Bethel, meaning house of God. Jacob also made a vow that if God protected him and provided for him, he would serve the Lord and return to Bethel to worship him. Life with Laban, marriages and children. Jacob continued his journey and arrived in Haran, where he met his uncle Laban. There he quickly fell in love with Laban's younger daughter, Rachel, who was beautiful and whom Jacob desired to marry. Laban agreed to let Jacob marry Rachel, but only after Jacob worked for him for 7 years. These years, motivated by love, seemed like only a few days to Jacob. However, on the night of the wedding, Laban deceived Jacob by giving him his older daughter, Leah, as his wife instead of Rachel. Jacob, unaware of the switch until the next morning, confronted Laban, who explained that it was not customary to marry off the younger daughter before the older one. Laban then agreed to give Jacob Rachel in marriage as well, but only if Jacob worked for another 7 years. Jacob agreed, and after a week of marriage to Leah, he also married Rachel. Jacob's family life became complicated with the two sisters vying for his affection. Leah, though less loved by Jacob, bore him 6 sons: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun, as well as a daughter named Dinah. Meanwhile, Rachel remained barren for many years, which caused her great distress. In desperation, Rachel gave her maidservant Bilhah to Jacob as a concubine, and through Bilhah, Rachel bore 2 sons, Dan and Naphtali. Leah, seeing this, gave her maidservant Zilpah to Jacob as well, and Zilpah bore 2 more sons, Gad and Asher. Finally, after many years, God remembered Rachel, and she bore Jacob a son named Joseph, who would later play a critical role in the family's story. Jacob's prosperity and conflict with Laban. After many years of service to Laban, Jacob's wealth grew as God blessed him. He became prosperous, with large flocks, herds, and servants. However, tensions rose between Jacob and Laban as Laban's sons grew envious of Jacob's success. Additionally, Laban repeatedly changed the terms of their agreements regarding wages and livestock. God then instructed Jacob to return to the land of his fathers, Canaan. Jacob, sensing the growing hostility, gathered his family and possessions and left Haran without informing Laban. Laban pursued Jacob, but God intervened, warning Laban in a dream not to harm Jacob. The two men eventually made peace, setting up a stone pillar as a boundary between them, and Jacob continued his journey back to Canaan. Wrestling with God and the reunion with Esau. As Jacob approached Canaan, he was filled with fear about meeting Esau again after years of separation. Fearing that Esau still harbored a grudge, Jacob sent gifts ahead to appease his brother and divided his family into two camps to protect them in case of an attack. The night before his encounter with Esau, Jacob had a mysterious encounter with a divine being. He wrestled with the man throughout the night, refusing to let go until he received a blessing. At dawn, the man, who was later revealed to be an angel or a manifestation of God, blessed Jacob and changed his name to Israel, meaning he struggles with God. This encounter symbolized Jacob's transformation from a man who had relied on his own cunning to one who had wrestled with God and come to a deeper understanding of faith and reliance on the divine. The next day, Jacob met Esau, and to his relief, Esau greeted him with forgiveness and love. The two brothers embraced, and the tension that had once defined their relationship was resolved. Return to Bethel and the birth of Benjamin. After reconciling with Esau, Jacob returned to Bethel, fulfilling the vow he had made years earlier when he fled from his brother. There he built an altar to God and reaffirmed his commitment to the Lord. God once again blessed Jacob and confirmed the promises of the covenant. Tragedy struck when Rachel, Jacob's beloved wife, died while giving birth to their second son, Benjamin, near Bethlehem. Despite the sorrow of Rachel's death, Benjamin's birth completed the 12 sons of Jacob, who would become the patriarchs of the 12 tribes of Israel. The later years of Jacob. Jacob's later years were marked by joy and sorrow. His sons became the heads of large families, but conflict arose when Joseph, Jacob's favorite son, was sold into slavery by his jealous brothers. Jacob was devastated when he believed Joseph had been killed, but years later he was reunited with Joseph in Egypt. Joseph had risen to a position of great power in Egypt, and during a severe famine, he was able to provide for his entire family. In his old age, Jacob moved to Egypt with all his descendants to be near Joseph. Before his death, Jacob blessed each of his 12 sons, with his blessings reflecting their personalities and futures. He also blessed Joseph's 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, adopting them as his own and ensuring that they too would share in the covenant promises. Jacob's death and legacy. Jacob died at the age of 147 in Egypt. Before his death, he requested that his body be returned to Canaan, to be buried in the cave of Machpelah, the burial place of his ancestors Abraham and Isaac. His sons honored his wishes, taking his body back to Canaan for burial. Jacob's life is remembered as one of transformation, from a man who deceived and manipulated to one who wrestled with God and became the father of a great nation. His descendants, the 12 tribes of Israel, would go on to play a central role in the history of the Jewish people and in the unfolding of God's promises throughout the Bible.